let's move on to our next step. I'm using a pair of US size 9 knitting needles because that's just what I think the size is going to need to be, based on that I cut this at about a 1/4 inch width, and pulling it taut, it looks like about a chunky weight yarn to me. I'll make a slip knot a few inches from the end and put it onto my needle. We want to pull everything taut so that it's keeping this tube shape like we talked about, so it's a yarn and it doesn't have these rough, ragged edges. So now I'm going to cast on 23 more stitches. So we have a total of 24. Here's my cast on. And now we'll start knitting. Our pattern is going to be knit 1, purl 3. Because I'm knitting flat, my even rows are going to be the opposite. So I'm going to knit 3, purl 1. And you'll see how I'm holding my working yarn. I hold it with my right hand. It doesn't matter if you hold it with your right or your left, which is hard for me. Just keeping tension on that so you're keeping your shape. Now we're on row 3, so we're back to the pattern of row 1, which is knit 1, purl 3. And we're just going to keep continuing like this over and over with our odd patterns. Our odd rows are knit 1, purl 3. Our even rows are knit 3, purl 1. So take a look at that pattern that's developing. With our ridges, and keep on knitting your knits and purling your pearls. All right. Once our piece is finished and measures 2.5 to 3 inches, or 3.5 inches if you want a little taller of a pumpkin. This one I made at 2.5 inches. This one I made at 3.5 inches. This one is 3, so it should be in between. We're not going to cast off yet. What we're going to do is we want to cinch in the top. So we're going to take our darning needle and just leave about a foot or so of tail on our working yarn. Thread that into the darning needle. It's a little tricky because that's very thick yarn. And then we're going to reverse into our stitches, sliding the darning needle through each stitch. And then once we do that, off our knitting needles. And it can be tricky because the darning needle might want to go through the fabric instead of just through the loop. So just make sure you're going right through the loop and not getting it caught on the fabric. And then you can pull through after every stitch, or you can wait a couple of stitches like I did, but then we just pull that through. Keep going. And every stitch, so we'll pull that all the way through. And then make sure we pull it nice and snug. And so we want to cinch this top, so we're going to keep pulling until we draw all of these stitches together. Do you see that? There's my top. It's pulling my stitches into a circle because I'm cinching it together. So then we want to take our two sides, our beginning and our end of our knitted swatch, and we want to stitch them together right along the edge. And we're going to try to go under each V, right in line, matching stitch to stitch, so that this is even and it's just going to look like a little bit wider of a rib. So we've still got our needle attached here. We're just going to stick that underneath the first V. And underneath the first V on the opposite side. Pull through. I've got a knot there, so it wants to get hung up. Just gonna not let it. And we're gonna go back under the second V. And we'll just keep going like that. Under each V once. From right to left, and then left to right. Now, once I reach the bottom and I've sewn my two edges together, it looks like I have a little hat to fit a gnome. I'm going to take my same end piece and I'm going to sew around that first row of stitches. This was my cast on, and I'm just going to go over and under, alternating over and under at each stitch. It's about halfway. I'm going to pull it through. Not fully tight though. I'm just going to pull my yarn all the way through. Okay, so I want this to still be loosely bound. Keep going the rest of the way. And once I get back to my beginning, pull it all the way through again. So now I've stitched all the way around my bottom opening hole. I'm going to take my shoddy stuffing. This is recycled textile stuffing, and you can use shoddy, you can use just recycled polyfill from a pillow or something else you no longer use, or just cut up bits of scraps from your other projects. So I'm going to take my little ends as well so that I don't have to throw them out. I'm going to put them in with my stuffing, and I'm going to stuff them into my pumpkin. And stuff this as full as you'd like. We don't want to stuff it too tight so that we're making gaps here that stuffing can escape through. But this looks like it should be good. And then, as we've weaved around, we're going to cut off our beginning tail and weave it through once or twice. And then just tuck it in and take our main tail and pull it tight, closing our hole. Beautiful. Now, we're going to stitch a few times around this hole underneath these previous stitches here, just to reinforce this, make it a little tighter. 3 or 4 times should be good. And we're going to take our needle and shove it straight through that circle opening on the bottom. We want it to come right out our top opening. And there it comes. It might push a little bit of your stuffing out, that's okay. There we go. And pull that all the way through. If you have a knot, it might try to get stuck. No, good. And then an extra little pull so it cinches in the top, you see, and makes that nice little gourd shape. And we've got some stuffing sticking out here that we'll stuff back in. And then we're going to stitch a couple of times around this opening. That looks like it should be all right. Give it a little tug and you'll see how it pulls that hole closed as well. But we want there to be a little bit of an opening because we're going to stick the stem in here at the top. And then we're going to shove our needle back through, all the way through. Straight through the center so it comes out our bottom. Wrestle it free and pull that down. That's gonna cinch in our top. See that? Making it a little gourd. And then we're just gonna weave in our tail end. And we'll drop it somewhere in the middle. Tract back inside. We want that tail to be on the inside. And then any of these little seam pieces that are sticking out that you don't like, you can tuck to be on the inside as well. Moving the yarn around so that that piece is on the inside. And there we go. I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to go find a stick that will be perfect for my stem, or you can use a cinnamon stick and it'll make your house smell really nice. Here's my stick. And we're just gonna insert it into the little hole we left. And there we have it. You can see the difference is, this is my piece that had no seams. You'll see there's no little pieces sticking out. There are bumps and imperfections, of course, but this is my piece that did have seams, and so you'll see every once in a while there's just a little piece that sticks out, and I think it's fine for these.